Keep it going for the JCC, the Sprout Fund, Freeburg, everybody they announced earlier. My name is Gab Bonesso. Thank you so much for being here today. When Nathan first approached me about speaking today, he was like, we'd like you to come and talk about your creative process, and we want to let you know the theme is anxiety. Do you think that's something you could touch upon? And I was like, Nathan, I am the human embodiment of Daffy Duck. Got it. We're gonna be fine. But I need to address an elephant in the room before I begin. I find it incredibly difficult to talk about my creative process and not sound like a pretentious ass, right? I mean, I was like practicing in my house and I'm like, I sound like Frasier or Niles Crane. I have to stop. So just let me get through the creative process first. If I seem like a complete jerk, I promise when I talk about anxiety, Daffy Duck will return. So I will be humanized or cartoonized, either way. So I am a comedian, I'm a child performer, and I always say that I create, basically, there's 3 different ways that I find myself creating. The first I describe as sort of organic. It could be something like I'm at the grocery store, something insane happens. Later that afternoon, I call my Aunt Val. I'm retelling the story to Val. Val is laughing hysterically and says, "Is this a bit?" And I'm like, yeah, it is now, and then I jot it down, and I have a bit. Or another example would be Josh and I were at a camp one summer. It was for all girls. There was a little girl who pulled us aside, was telling us about how she had been severely bullied, but that everything changed this last year. And when I asked her, well, what was the difference? What changed in that year? She said, oh, well, I don't live with my mom anymore, and her boyfriend used to abuse me. I live with my grandma now, and it's amazing. My grandma talks to me every day. I get 3 meals every day. I get to be myself. It's the best experience ever. And I was so happy for her, and she walked away, and I turned to Josh, and I was like, wow, you know, when I was growing up, when there was a kid who lived with their grandparents, like I had a cousin who lived with our grandparents, and my parents, are you trying to make me anxious? Oh, Katie, it's you. Is it you rocking the baby? Who is the evil human trying to I have ADHD, folks. Okay. Anyway, I was remarking to Josh, and it was just that, like, when my cousin who lived with our grandparents, my parents always presented it as though I should feel sorry for him, you know? Like, you know, Gabby, he doesn't get to live with his mom and dad, you know? His mom and dad aren't able to take care of him. You should always feel so I looked at these kids as almost kids that were to be pitied. And I know other kids do, you know? It's like if you don't have a traditional home life, there's something off. But in this little girl's story, it was like, no, living with grandma is the best thing that ever happened to her. And I was like, Josh, we need to write an anthem. We need a punk rock song called Living with Grandma. And he was like, yeah, and it could celebrate like every different type of family that isn't just a mom and dad. I'm like, yeah, it'll be amazing. And so we get in his car, and I'm like, maybe the chorus could be like, living with grandma, living with grandma. Next thing you know, we have like voice memo out. He's writing bass parts. I'm drumming on and there you go. We have a song, right? And it's honestly probably our second most popular song we've ever written. It's the only other song that gets radio play next to 9 O'Clock Band the Jackrabbit. And it was this organic moment. It's almost like found art if you're a visual artist. It's like I find a moment and then I write about it. That's how I look as my first way I create. The second way I create, I would say, is more assignment-based. So I've been a columnist. I used to do corporate stand-up comedy for American Eagle Outfitters. I know that when I was discussing with Nathan when we met about this, and I was talking to this like about assignment-based creation, he just looked miserable. He was just like, oh, that sounds horrible. That sounds like the worst way to create, like you're being assigned something. And I was like, no, it's actually the opposite. It's the easiest way to create. I mean, I don't have to come up with the topic. I just have to write the funny, or I just have to write the column. You know, I don't have to do that creative thinking. I'm just given the creative thing, and I just, you know, and I do my work. It's almost like math in a way. You know, once you've written one column, you know your style. So you have a formula to it. So it's like, oh, you need me to write about a small business in Robinson? Okay, well, what's my formula? Well, I personalize it. So I should do Richie's sausage. I like to make it an anecdotal story. I'll talk about my grandma making felagones with Richie's sausage. Boom, I've got my column. You know what I mean? It was like easy for me in a way. And when Nathan thought that was appalling, I was sort of, it reminded me of the play Waiting for Godot, right? Lucky Impazzo. He's named Lucky because he doesn't have to think, right? And that sort of is how I like that. I like that kind of, the stress is off of me, you're coming up with the content, I just have to write the funny. The third way I create, I don't really, it's hard for me to like even say like it's creating because it's something that just happens. I credit it to being a manic depressive, and I say that because the only other artists I've ever read or heard that have this similar process have some type of mental health issue, whether it be bipolar or schizophrenia or depression. And basically, I don't do anything, it just appears. And what I mean by that is, like this past summer, I woke up around 2:33 in the morning. I don't sleepwalk, but I sleep eat. I went down to my kitchen and made myself some jam sandwiches, because I love myself some jam. Came back up to my bedroom. I kind of remember writing something. I don't really. Went to bed. Woke up again around 8 o'clock, and there was 3 pages of a fully written monologue about my passion for jam. And it was funny. Like, I'm reading it, and I'm like, this is hysterical. I mean, it went everywhere from Destiny's Child references to my rage against preserves. I mean, it was well-constructed, with levels, and a perfect finish. I don't remember writing it. I know I really like that jam sandwich at 3 a.m. Didn't know what that was. Other times I've just woken up and an entire song is just there. It's not anything. Like I clearly remember once going to the bathroom and I just literally had my morning pee, wrote a song in my morning pee, came down to my mother, and she's like, "Oh, you're in a good mood, baby. I heard you singing up in the bathroom." I'm like, "Yeah, I think I wrote a song." She's like, "Just right now?" I'm like, "Just right now." And I sang it for her. She's like, "You wrote that during your morning pee. This is amazing." Josh and I perform that song to this day. All the songs usually I write, I don't actually sit down and write. They just enter my head. I sing them for Josh, and he's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm serious." He's like, "All right, that's our new song." And so I can't really take credit to that. From a lot of the authors I've read that suffered from manic depression, Faulkner, I know, he wrote As I Lay Dying in 6 weeks. 6 weeks, As I Lay Dying, one of the greatest American novels of all time. He wrote in 6 weeks from midnight to 4 a.m. That's the only time he worked, from midnight to 4 a.m. And when asked about it, he would describe it as a white light. I don't see a light. Nothing like that happens. I can only assume Faulkner, like me, had some mania, and that was what was happening. So I would say the third way I create is I'm not even a part of it. I'm almost like, it's like Whoopi Goldberg and Ghost, right? I don't know who's writing it. It's just coming through me, and I'm the one who gets to have the credit for it. So, and I kind of want you guys to know, when I talk about all this creative stuff and how I create, when I'm creating, that is the one time in my life I am not suffering from anxiety. Creating is the one time that I am free, I'm in the moment, I'm happy, and I fully feel like Gab Bonesso. Unfortunately, everything else that comes with being a full-time performer is laced with anxiety, and it really stresses me out. And as a manic depressive, I know that creating is the thing that kind of keeps me going. When I was first diagnosed as a manic depressive, they put me on a lot of medicine, a lot of very scary medicine. I don't know if you guys are familiar with drugs like Geodone and Seroquel. I was on both at once. 1,200 milligrams of Seroquel, 800 milligrams of Geodone. You'd be amazed. I lost everything. I was not Gab. I had no light in my eye. I had no desire to write. I had no creativity. And it wasn't even like I was better, you know, I wasn't sleeping. It wasn't like I suddenly was just this functioning human. No, I was just a shell. And lucky for me, I have horrible stomach issues. I've had a bleeding ulcer since I was 20, and the pills started destroying my guts, and my gastroenterologist said I had to go off of that medicine, which was the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me. So once I got off the medicine, my entire team, They were like, well, we're going to have to find something else except lithium. That's the preferred drug for people with manic depression, but that is really rough on your stomach. And I said, I'd like to try a holistic approach. I'd like to try to do something other than the meds. The meds make me not gab. And at first, both of my therapists threatened to not work with me if I wouldn't be medicated. And I was like, okay, that's a big risk. I don't know if I should not have therapy. And then eventually, through time, my psychotherapist realized that it wasn't worth living if I couldn't be Gab. And she understood that my personality, since I was a child with manic depression, I exist in a hypermanic state, and that's who Gab is. Gab is hypermanic, and if you take that away from me, I don't get to be Gab anymore. So it's very, very important for me to be an artist and to create. Like I said, it's the one time I actually feel okay. But when you're an artist living in a city like Pittsburgh and you have to do a bunch of different arts, that's the one thing I tell everyone. You can't just be a comedian, you can't just be an actress, you can't just be a writer, you can't just be a singer. Kind of have to do everything if you want to make a full-time living. And the number one stressor, the number one thing being an artist in Pittsburgh for me is money. I'm not going to lie. It's a huge, huge stress. When you're an independent contractor, people don't necessarily pay you the day you do your program. So very often, especially in the fall, there could be a week where I have 2 shows a day, 5 days a week. On paper, you think, wow, Gab, you're making like $2 grand in a week, but none of the clients pay me. So I've made no money and I've worked like a dog and I don't have a voice for the weekend. Well, now I have to do an adult comedy show that's gonna pay me $300 and I might have to cancel because I just did $2,000 worth of work and I didn't get any money. And I'm trying to stay positive because the work I'm doing is teaching kids to be kind, teaching people to be understanding, be empathetic, so I can't get mad about money. But you know what's scary? Not paying your electric bill. That's nerve-wracking. And so now I'm just like in a constant state of financial anxiety and I don't know what I'm gonna do and how am I gonna pay it? But guys, little tip, if you're a young artist and you're like, ooh, she's making me scared, you don't have to pay your bills sometimes. Like, for real. I'm usually a month behind. Like, in general, I am always running 1 month behind, and I've yet to go to jail yet, although I have heard Trump's bringing back debtor's prison. And I'm kind of okay with that. I think I would do well in prison. I would get totally ripped. It'll be good. It'll be okay. Finally get that master's degree I've been wanting. But yes, financial anxiety is probably the biggest for me. I wrote a list. I brought note cards because my favorite character from a movie is Max Fisher from Rushmore. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna bring note cards and maybe I'll look like Max Fisher. But I don't. I look like Gab. So the second thing, okay, this one, I was like debating on whether I wanted to talk about this because this is such like a Pittsburgh enthusiastic event. But one of my anxieties is Pittsburgh. I'm not gonna lie. It's a real stressor for me on a lot of levels. Like, as Nathan said, I have been lucky. I'm a woman, and I've been named the best comedian 3 times in this town. That's crazy. I'm not just a woman. I am an alternative comedian. If you don't know what that means, it means I'm not someone who's ever gonna get booked at the Improv. That's not what I do. I'm not Andy Kaufman in that I'm like in a character state. I'm more like, how do you describe? I really am like a mix of Lenny Bruce and Daffy Duck. Imagine that combination telling jokes. My style is very absurd, high energy, theatrical. I'm not afraid to talk about politics. I'm not afraid to talk about mental illness. So I advocate within my stand-up, which is also not very appealing to comedy clubs, as you can imagine. And yet I've won the award 3 times, so that's kind of crazy. I've had amazing opportunities here, writing comedy for a corporation like American Eagle for 2 straight years. Who gets those kind of opportunities? I got a grant from the Pittsburgh Foundation where I got to do a creative residency at Carnegie Mellon where they just let me play. I could just create. That's kind of where we had some funding to create Josh and Gab. It's just, I know that I'm blessed in this town, but at the same time, the jobs where I could probably make a better living, be less tense about my electric bill, radio. I was on the radio. I did FM radio. I was an on-air producer. I was nominated for a New Talent Award. But when I got fired from the station, and if you can Google this, I ended up suing, but I was fired and they told me I was being groomed to be on a morning show. It was the B94 morning show. I had gone away. We had written the show. I was with 2 other hosts. When it came back, time to sign contracts, I was told that I wasn't girly enough to be on B94 radio, that I had to appeal to young teenage girls, but I wasn't girly enough. And when I said, what do you mean by that? The program manager said, well, look at your hair. Look at how you dress. I said, this is radio. What are you talking about? And then he said, well, and also, you're just too hip and cerebral for this market. I think you need to move to New York or LA or San Francisco. And I sued and I won. And so that might be a reason I'll never work in radio in this town, was because I stood up for myself. #MeToo. But also, look at the more popular radio stations. Look at DVE. I love DVE. Randy is a very nice man to me, but Randy and I have had these conversations. Gab, you're not DVE material. Do you know anything about the Steelers? I know I hate them. I know I don't like misogyny. I don't like supporting a 2-time accused rapist. I don't know, am I weird that way, Pittsburgh? I'm sorry. So guess I'm not geared for DVE. And then there's what? Kiss FM, Mikey and Big Bob. Hey, it's crazy stories about, I don't know, do you want to eat some Tide Pods this morning, everybody? Yeah, I'm not doing that. Hi, I love myself. I'm not going to eat Tide Pods for the radio. So no, and so then that program manager's words of, you're too hip, cerebral. Should I not be in this market? Should I not be in Pittsburgh? I've had success with my children's show. I have some success as an alternative comedian, but is this the right place for me? I don't know. The cost of living's great. I have a good support system, but it's one of my anxieties that every day I stress. I journaled. Should I move? Should I move? Should I move? Where do I move to? What should I do? It's a stressor. I love you, Pittsburgh, but I just don't know if we're meant to be. It's sort of like Brokeback Mountain for me. That's how I feel about Pittsburgh. I just can't quit you, Pittsburgh. That's really how I feel, and I don't know if it's good for me at this point. Another anxiety-inducing thing from my career is, this is mostly with Josh and Gab, but also with my stand-up, am I having a social impact? You know, I mean, I don't take Josh and Gab lightly at all. I know when it's being described, it's like, it's this fun, high-energy, rock and roll comedy, anti-bully show. And yes, on paper, that's what it is. And honestly, that is what sets our program apart from every other program, because we don't come in like, so this is my story. You know, it's not sad and tragic, and we're not victims. We've taken our experiences and we've let it empower us, and that's what our program's about. But it's not just that. I mean, every day I have a kid who comes up to me and tells me a story that would rip your heart out of your chest, right? And I think, well, this kid had the bravery to come up to me. What about the kids that don't have the bravery? Am I making an impact on them? Why didn't they feel safe to come up to me and tell me their story? Are they doing okay? Am I reaching the right kids who need to hear this message? Every day that happens. I mean, this past Wednesday, I was in Leechburg. I was doing Leechburg Elementary. I don't know much about Leechburg, but I kind of thought, you know, backwards maybe. You know, maybe kids are talking more about quads than Freud. I don't know. I wasn't sure what I was walking into. I get there, I do the program, it goes extremely well. 4 fifth graders wait after the show to talk to me, 3 girls and a boy. And they want to tell me about the 5th grade bully. It's this girl, she's mean to everyone, but the boy in the little group says she's the meanest to him. Of all the kids in school, she's the meanest to him. And I said, why? Why you, buddy? You're so cool. Like, I just don't even get it. Like, why is she being mean? He said, well, she disagrees with my preference. And every day she makes a point to tell me I'm gross. And now I'm dealing with a 5th grader, so I can't just assume his preference is anything to do with sexuality, but I'm thinking 80% that might be what he's trying to say to me. So I go, okay, so you're saying she tells you you're gross for who you are and just who you are as a person. And she went, yeah, exactly. She says I'm gross. And I said, do you respect her? He's like, oh, no. I'm like, do you like her? He's like, no. I was like, why do you care? He's like, yeah, I guess I don't. Like, right, you just made fun of her like for 10 minutes telling me she's obsessed with Justin Bieber. I mean, first of all, you need to call her and tell her it's not 2011 anymore. I'm like, don't give this girl the power. I said, and the other thing, man, I would question why she's so obsessed with your preference. You know, like, why does she care? What does it have to do with her at all? And then we continue to talk. He and I are both Riverdale fans. He said, I'm the Kevin in Riverdale, which is the only gay character, so now I was confirmed. I knew what I'm working with here. And I'm like, and then we just start talking about all our favorite gay YouTubers. We're calling each other queen. I'm spinning him around. Like, life just got great all of a sudden. And then his female friend says, Gab, I've got a question I got to talk to you about. And I said, okay, what's that? And she said, my little brother, he's in kindergarten, and this year he talked to my parents, and he really prefers to have his nails painted. He likes makeup, and he's growing his hair out. And we love it. My mom lets me put makeup on him. I mean, it's all good at our house. It's just when he comes here, none of the boys will play with him now, and they all make fun of him, and I don't know what to do. I mean, do you think I know what to do? I mean, do you think I know what to do? I'm just like, well, what I'm happy about is that at home, he's got a great support system, that your mom and dad sound so cool. You sound like the greatest big sister, that you're this concerned and working out, like looking out for him already. If I was your little brother, I wouldn't worry about the people who don't want to play with me. I'd be focusing on the kids who do. And even if they're just little girls, sounds like that might be awesome. They can help him paint his nails. This might be a good thing. So, I mean, but was that enough? Did I leave her with what she needed? And these are the kind of questions I get every day. I don't have a background in psychology. I'm just someone who was also bullied, you know? So that's something that I struggle with. I talk about mental illness all the time. It's my tagline in stand-up. I end every joke with, but I'm the crazy one, and I keep, like, it escalates throughout the show. Like, by the end, I'm like, but I'm the crazy one. Like, I'm just nuts. Like, I just, phew. For me, it's this release. I'm finally able to use my mania in a way to make everybody laugh, even if it does seem like I'm the embodiment of Daffy Duck. I don't care. It's who I am. But then I worry, do people take it the wrong way? I don't want anyone ever to look at me and then make fun of people for being crazy. I want to be somebody that other people with mental illness are proud to know. I don't want to be someone who's like, thanks, Gab, you make us all look like Daffy Duck, you know? So I have that weight on my shoulders every time I reference being a manic depressive. So social impact is definitely something that I stress about on the daily, I would say. It's definitely something that makes me anxious. The fourth thing, oh man, this one really, not necessarily related to creativity, but my therapist would be furious with me describing it this way. I get very anxious doing what I call normal people stuff. Okay, and my shrink is like, why are they normal and you're not? I'm like, no, you're right, Mohini. We're all normal. We're all normal. But, okay, I won't say normal. How about muggles? Is that fair? Harry Potter fans, the muggles? I get very tense doing muggle-esque activities, meaning I don't open mail. It scares me. If you went to my house right now, I guarantee you for the last 3 months, all of my bills are just piled up in the middle of my dining room table. Like today, I knocked it over by accident with my laptop, and I'm like, oh, I should open those one of these days. Like, I will not open mail. Phone calls? No. Even if it's someone I love, I can't answer the phone. What's going to happen if I answer the phone? What's going to happen? You're going to tell me someone's dead? You're going to tell me you need me to come over, and I can't come over right now. I'm in a bad place right now, and I need to be alone in a blanket for it. And no, Aunt Val, I can't drive you to the doctor, so I can't answer my phone because you don't know what's going to be on the other end of that phone call. Not going to do it. My email, oh my God. If you're one of those people who think like if your inbox is filling up, that stresses you out seeing it on your phone, don't look at my phone. Don't look at it. Don't look at 3,000. I'm not going to check an email. I'm not going to do it. Not gonna, unless I know it's like, you know, Gab, you're gonna get an offer, then I'll go through all of them, find the one, you know, it's bad. It's bad. I can't do normal people stuff. Date? No, not gonna do it. I've given up dating. Not gonna date. That's no. Don't wanna date. Never gonna date again. I've been in 2 big relationships in my life. One lasted 4 years, one lasted 10. The 10-year one was on and off. No, I'm not doing it anymore. Done. Not going to date. Dating scares me. I don't like small talk. Another thing that gives me anxiety, small talk. This is fine. Me just like coming up here and being like, hi, I'm crazy. My name's Gab. I'm comfortable with that. Microphone, fourth wall, we're good. Later, if we're all at the coffee stand together, there's 2 ways I converse. One, I'll just interview you. Oh, wow, you look lovely. I love that scarf. Where did you get it? What's your name? Da, da, da. I'll interview you. That's not conversation. That's how I do a conversation. Or I blurt things. That's the other thing. Like, oh, my God, I love your hair. You're great. We should be best friends. That's not how you meet people. But that's how I meet people. So I can't converse. I can't do normal muggle things. I just can't do it. Makes me anxious. Not going to do it. And then this one is probably the biggest anxiety that I suffer as an artist. And I don't think I was even aware of it until about a year ago. A year ago, I released my first comedy album. It's called Everyone's Dead, a comedy album. The reason for the grim title was I began the process of making the album months after my mother passed away. I had been my mother's caregiver for 7 years. She was my best friend. She was my muse. She was my everything. She was my partner in life. And when mother passed away, as I've mentioned, the only time I feel good is when I'm creating. So I met with a record label. I said, I really need a project right now, and making an album is exactly what I need to do for my grief. So I started the process of making the album, thinking it would be dedicated to my mother. And then 2 weeks before I was to record the album, last year, Christmas Eve of 2016, my second oldest brother overdosed on Christmas Eve and died. And the whole Christmas, we couldn't get a hold of him. But my whole life, he's 19 years older than me, he was always an addict, so he would admit, often we couldn't get a hold of him for Christmas. Often he didn't show up for the holidays. And so on December 26th, when the police came to tell us that our brother had died and was dead in his apartment for 3 days, I had to go make a comedy album a week later. And so at that point, the dedication went to my brother, and that's why I had to call the album Everyone's Dead, because at that point I was just like, okay, so everyone's gonna die now. Everyone's dying. I mean, I just snapped, right? And so that's what that album became, this cathartic release. And then right as I released the album, I went into an insane depression, which no one is used to me being depressed. I'm very comfortable being manic. When I'm depressed, I hide. You will not hear from me. I go under, because I don't want to burden people with my depression. So I get really depressed after the album, because I realize, oh crap, I made the album and they're still dead. They're not coming back. So this isn't the cathartic release I thought I was going to be. Go into a big depression, and a friend of mine meets with me, and she says to me that she's concerned that I am sabotaging my own career. And I said, what do you mean? And she's like, Gab, you are one of the most talented people I've ever met. You just did this album a week after burying your brother, a year after burying your mother. It's an amazing album. You go on TV, you talk about these experiences, you don't falter, you just do it. I don't think your issue is you. Most people are afraid of failure. I think you love it. I think you want failure. I think you're afraid of success. And she said it, and I was like, get out of my brain, get out of my soul. How do you know this? And it really messed me up. And I was like, she's right. I am afraid of success. And it's not like I'm afraid of fame. I want money. It's not that. I think the truth is I'm afraid of success because I'm afraid of how I would be able to manage manic depression as a successful comedian. And that is the God's honest truth. It is very difficult to be a stand-up comedian and manage your manic depression. I am constantly around people who want to drink. I am constantly around people who want to do drugs. I am constantly around people who hate themselves and just breed a negativity everywhere they go. I am around people who are also manic. It's just not easy. This industry is built to make a normal person feel bipolar. So if you're already bipolar, I just worry, because I love to create, as I mentioned, but I also want to continue living. I don't want my dream to be the thing that just undid me. I mean, all of my favorite, Lenny Bruce, dead, died young, died of a drug overdose, but it was mental illness related. I mean, we all know. Most drug overdoses, I do think, are mental illness related. Robin Williams. When Robin Williams died, I was convinced it was a heart attack. There was no way in my mind he would have killed himself. Robin Williams? My shrink at the time texted me. It was like 11 o'clock at night. I see the New York Times alert, Robin Williams is dead. In my head, I'm like, okay, had to be a heart attack. I'm trying to research it. My shrink texts me. She's like, are you okay? Robin Williams killed himself. I'm like, I mean, I'm upset. I love Robin Williams. She's like, right, you remind me completely like Robin Williams. What are you feeling right now? Well, I wasn't thinking of killing myself until you texted me. Like, what the hell? And that was Robin Williams, Oscar winner. He couldn't take it. And I know you'll say, oh, Gab, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and that was, no, people, let's just be for real. Robin Williams, at that age, killed himself. I mean, it just scares me. So I am terrified of what could happen. I am terrified of taking it to that level where everyone knows who I am. You're all watching me. I mean, you see how this world is. You've been on the internet. I don't know. It scares me. So these are the things that make me an anxious performer. And I don't know how I am on time. Have I used it up? I've used up my time. Guys, that's okay. That is okay. I hope I've left you with your own level of anxiety. I just ask that you pray that I'm never successful. And I'm going to give it back over to Nathan, guys. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.